Hey, welcome back to Video Game Tester 101. My name is Lawrence. I talk about video game testing and QA because I have a little bit of experience with it. This video is going to be the third part of a clickbaity title about fighting in the workplace when it comes to testing video games, video game QA. So just want to say if you have not seen the first and the second video, then this video will not have as much of an impact because this video is not as impactful as the first two. But also it's not going to make as much sense because a lot of this has to do with the first video as well. So I'll leave the first two video links down below and you can watch those two. And then when you come back to this one, hopefully like now you're ready to go. Now you're understanding the mindset that I had during this particular time. I want to make a quick correction. I keep using the term when I was at Midway, I think Unreal Tournament 2, and I'll have to start correcting that. I think it was Unreal Tournament 3 that I was. But anyways, all right, so let's move forward. So the first video talked about how I wanted to just like mentally destroy this guy and just ruin his life because he put me in the boring zone and he's a big crybaby and I was upset by it. Second one has how somebody was aggressive towards me, mildly aggressive, not seriously aggressive, mildly aggressive towards me, and how I shared that weird experience with how crazy I could be, and it ended up working out. So the third one, I have to say, this is when I was at a company called SOE. This is Sony Online Entertainment. This was also in San Diego. All the experiences were in San Diego. So as for this one, this is how it went. And it has a little bit of backstory, but let me just make the disclaimer here is that this time in this particular story, I was the potential aggressor. I was the one with the problem, and I was the one who potentially took it to a really dark place fast. Not proud of who I was in my 20s, a little bit ashamed. As a father of three teenagers, I would not condone such behavior, and I don't condone such behavior now. Only thing I can say is I was a fool during that time, and I'm just happy that I didn't make as foolish as mistakes as I could have made. I'm grateful for that. Okay, so let's start. I was working at SOE. A little bit of backstory because let's go back in time before SOE. When I first started working in the video game testing QA environment, I worked at a company called SCEA, Sony Computer Entertainment of America. They made like God of War and I don't know, whatever else. They made all sorts of cool games. I worked on a game called Blast Factor. Okay. Blast Factor was like a PSN game. It's really tiny. It's a game that nobody cares about. And in one of my other videos I talk about, it's one of the games where I spent like a week or two just playing the first level, which is like 3 minutes. All right. So in Blast Factor, right before launch, it was time to test out the leaderboard. And so you try to get as high, of a score as you can. And, you put your name in there and you'd see the leaderboards and stuff like that. Well, before launch, they wanted to take screenshots and they wanted to take footage of the particular game so they can include it with the screenshots and the presentation. Say, hey, our game is launching. Come check out our game. This is great. Take a look. Well, I was a goofball when I worked on Blast Factor, and so I had created a this gamer tag name because you enter your gamer tag for your high score or whatever, right? And I was a big fan of Tenacious D at the time because Tenacious D was really big, and so I named myself Poops McGee. So Poops McGee was the name of my gamer tag, and so what happened is that I happened to just be really good at the game, and so I got a high score. Poops McGee is the high score of this leaderboard. And so when the producers were like, hey, we need to take screenshots of this leaderboard and we need to use it in our presentation, and the top name is Poops McGee, we can't have that. We can't have Poops McGee. Like, that's not going to work. It's ridiculous. And so I got word back. We all got word back. Hey team, I know the game is launching in a day or so. We need to work overtime and we need to knock Poops McGee out of the way, we need to score higher than Poops McGee and use like normal names. And, and so we were thinking, why can't you just go into the database and just change it? For whatever reason, I don't know why, for whatever reason, that just wasn't an option. They just couldn't go in and erase Poops McGee from it. So we were tasked for like hours, if not, we had to work overtime to try to beat Poops McGee's high score. Mind you, this was a very high score. I was really good at it. And it's like, if they didn't beat it before, how are they going to beat it now? You know what I mean? It's just a high score. And so all my coworkers were genuinely really upset with me. They were really upset with me that I had caused this problem for us to stay longer or whatever it was. And it was like a really difficult task. It was a really difficult task to accomplish. It's not like something simple. You have to beat the score. And so what started happening was, and here's the thing, it was like in first place. And so not only did you have to knock it out of place with better scores, but you had to knock it so far down that it appears off the screen, and then you just have a screen of good scores, right? So beating the high score wasn't enough. You had to beat it this time, and then beat that sometime, and then beat that sometime, and then push it out of the way. So we were there for an hour, or I'm not an hour, we were there for a few hours, if not days, trying to beat Poops McGee's ultimate score, and my coworkers were really mad at me for that. And it was like this really irritating thing. Okay, what does that have to do with SOE? What does it have to do with me being the aggressor at SOE years later? Okay, so one of the things that I have a free video game testing introduction course. I'll leave the link below. You guys can check it out. One of the pros and cons, one of the pros that I have is talking about networking. And check out the video and you'll know what I'm talking about when you check out that free course. It's not going to cost you anything. So in it, I talk about the value of networking. So when people get laid off from this project, they take each other, and they help each other. So eventually everybody kind of just follows each other like raccoons, like a flock of birds. You kind of end up everywhere working together at multiple video game companies. And that's even how I ended up in Austin, Texas, where I am now, is because I worked with somebody in San Diego. They came out to Austin, Texas, and then I came and followed them. Very common thing, very, very thing. So I was working with other people at SOE who I'd worked on Blast Factor with as well. So now I had my team at the time. I was working on EverQuest. I don't remember which expansion, because they have like 100 million expansions. I was one of the expansions that I was working on. And then in another building, complete other building, there was like another game being worked on with another QA team. But one of the guys that I'd worked with also was working on that team. And so one day I received, imagine this. So we didn't have cell phones we had cell phones at the time, but they weren't used as commonly as they were today. They had landline phones. And so in my particular pod, my manager gets a call, ring, ring, ring. And he goes, hello, blah, blah. And he's talking to somebody. And so lo and behold, I come to find out later, he's talking to another manager, an actual manager, game manager. This isn't like another game employee. This is a manager, just like him, right? And he goes, hey, Lawrence, this other manager wants to talk to you. I go, okay, why? Like, who? Right? Like, I knew who the manager was after he told me. He's like, okay, like that guy's pretty cool. I've run into him a few times. He was always a nice guy. He was a cool manager, real cool guy. And so I get on the phone and I go, hey, what's up, man? He goes, hey, Lawrence, he said something along the lines of something like, how you doing, Poops McGee? And I was like, what? He's like, you remember Poops McGee? And I was like, oh yeah, from Blast Factor. And then I can hear everyone in the background, like in the background laughing. Wah, 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 wah. All right, Poops McGee, good to hear from you, Poops McGee. And, and I was like, wait, what is this about? What are you talking about? All right, Poops McGee. And he hangs up the phone, right? So you got to look from my perspective is that I'm trying to do my job. Somebody calls me up who's another manager in another building. And then he comments that something about how you doing, Poops McGee. And then I can hear laughter roaring behind him, all over the phone. And then when I try to ask him, what was this about? What's going on? Like, why you bring this up? And then he hangs up the phone. He's like, all right, man, bye. Hangs up the phone. I was, to say the least, I was genuinely like, I was just like, man, this dude just disrespected me, and everybody's thinking I'm a fool. Everybody's laughing at me. I was just mad. I was mad. So I went back and I told, I told my manager, hey, he just said this. Like, what's going on with that? He's like, what's Poots McGee from? And I was like, oh, Poots McGee was like a name from this particular game. Da 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 da. And he's like, how would he know that? I was like, oh, this one dude who worked with me on there was over there. So they were sharing that story about me. So they're over there randomly talking about me, about how I'm Poops McGee and how I did all this. And they were just all cracking up. Now, as an adult, as a man who is just like, who has 3 teenage kids and hopefully I hope that I'm much wiser than I was then. Reflecting on it, they were just having a good time. It was a funny story. Like I'm telling you now, it's a funny story, right? I had a stupid name, Poops McGee, and everybody was mad, but it was just funny. It was funny. Like the producers couldn't, they had such a stupid name on it. They forced everybody to work extra hard to delete it, from the leaderboards. That's funny, right? It's like, it's a funny little thing. It wasn't funny to me at the time because I thought that I was the butt of everyone's joke. I thought everyone was laughing at me. And so I was like, man, he's being disrespectful. I'm going to go over there right now. I'm going to go over right now and confront him. Right. And I had this attitude, like I was going to go over there and be like, what are you disrespecting me for? Like that was the mindset of a foolish young man in the 20s of how to handle problems. You go to their face. It's not like the internet today where you can type things and then hide. I'm not going to say nothing. Back in those days, you would go and confront somebody. You said something. Let's do it face to face. Let's talk. You want to make fun of me? You want to disrespect me? And I was perfectly fine, doing this. And I was like, I'm going to go over there. And my manager was like, no, man, he's just joking around. Don't be stupid. He had to like talk me down from going over to this other manager when I'm just a lowly employee and confronting him aggressively. He's like, no, let me talk to him. Right? Let me talk to him. Just sit down. Let me figure out what's going on. Cool guy. He spoke to him. I don't know what was said, but long story short, afterwards, I was still heated. I was fuming the whole time. And afterwards, after I caught him outside, I was like, hey man, what's up with that whole Poops McGee thing? What was that? And he's like, oh man, no. I don't want to blow it out of proportion. It's just that I don't want to say the other dude's name that I worked with. But he's like, such and such told us a story, and we just thought it was really funny. It was really cool and really funny. No disrespect. I didn't mean any disrespect by that. I was like, okay, that's cool. Right. And from there it was squashed. Right. But the moral of this particular story, it just seems that the potential for me again to rise to violence was still there. It was still there, even though it was a mild misunderstanding. And it's like, I'm ashamed of that. I'm ashamed that I was just, and here's the thing is that I'm trying to come off like I didn't do all this and all that. I'm nothing. But nonetheless, I was still very aggressive. I wasn't really out slashing people's tires and jumping people and beat them up and stuff like that. I mean, I think in my days in high school, I was a little bit of a bully, unfortunately, and that's a whole different story. But for this particular time, I just didn't like people disrespecting me, and I had no problem confronting them. And if it got aggressive, even if that would ruined my career, it's almost like not getting your way could lead to potential problems that ruin your life. But when I was in my most dumb phase of life, it just didn't matter. Luckily, the other manager came in. And so I want to say that other times in my career, as I got older, I've continually run into other people where I almost got in a fight. There's one other story where it's normal software where I had to confront a guy, and that's a different story. If you guys want to hear that story, I'll tell you, but it has nothing to do with video game QA. It's just normal software QA where I had to confront somebody. But I don't think I was the aggressor in that particular story. If you guys are interested, let me know. Say, hey, I want to hear that story. All right, type it down. I want to hear that other story. But yeah, I almost came to blows with another guy. But in general, as I got older, I come to realize that this stuff you can't take this stuff serious. You can't take people that serious. You're going to just run into people that either irritate you or disrespect you or just make you furious. And you have to be, you have to have self-control. So that's a little bit, I'm a little bit ashamed of that last story, which is weird because you'd think I'd be more ashamed of the first story, which I am. I am ashamed of the first story, but I'm ashamed of the last story probably because so much time has gone by and I had a chance to grow. And it's just one of those things to where I was fully willing to go approach another manager in an aggressive manner and confront them face to face. I just felt, I don't know. But nonetheless, this is just a lesson to you. If you want to get into video game QA, you will deal with personalities. You will deal with possible bullies. You will deal with people. You will deal with situations where you will get so heated that you will want to do something very stupid. And just as a reminder, be smart. Do not do that. Bite your tongue. Depending on if you're willing to throw this whole life away and just start over or do something else as a career, then go ahead. But if you're trying to make it to somewhere tomorrow, then you got to remember to just be wise today. So that is the last of my experiences of being aggressive in the QA world, almost fighting people. Not necessarily. Sometimes I'm the bad guy. Sometimes somebody else is the bad guy. I hope you enjoyed this story. If this video has brought you any value, any advice, please hit the like button, subscribe. If you want to hear more stories, leave in the comments any questions or anything you'd like to say, because I'd be more than happy to address. I'm sure I have a million stories. I just, have to remember, so go ahead and drop a line below. And so, yeah. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video.